Once called an underdog candidate, Erin O'Toole's victory in the 2020 CPC leadership election likely came as a shock to many. Up against a candidate who was supposedly awaiting his coronation, O'Toole's campaign wasn't taken as seriously as it should have. O'Toole's platform centered around being tough on the Chinese regime, helping to end Western alienation by opposing the carbon tax and supporting pipeline projects, while sticking up for small business during the pandemic. Here is what Erin O'Toole has done in his first 100 days as Conservative Party leader to fulfill those promises. One of the first items on any new leader's list is reorganizing their leadership team. In early September, the newly minted Conservative Party leader, Erin O'Toole, announced his 43-member-strong shadow cabinet. This included prominent Tory MPs in new roles, including the former party leader, Andrew Scheer. His first major shakeup was making Candice Bergeon his deputy leader, moving Leona Alisev, the Liberal MP who crossed the floor from the Liberal Party to become Andrew Scheer's deputy, to the National Security Committee. Former CPC leadership candidates that O'Toole had beat out were integrated into his new party leadership. MPs Michael Chong and Marilyn Gladu, who had originally run against O'Toole, were placed in shadow cabinet positions, and Andrew Scheer even stayed in party leadership as the shadow minister of infrastructure. Michelle Rempel Garner was promoted to take on one of the most powerful positions during the pandemic, critic to Trudeau's Minister of Health, Patty Hajdu. But the Conservative Party's most well-known shadow ministers and key players likely had very little concern about being moved. Michael Barrett, who was integral as the Conservatives' ethics critic during the We Charity scandal, stayed firmly in his role. Pierre Poilievre, known for being a firebrand in the House of Commons and the closest thing the Conservatives have to a rock star, kept his position as the opposition's finance critic, albeit with a new adversary, Chrystia Freeland, after his undeniable role in Bill Morneau's resignation. In a minority government, shadow cabinet ministers are more crucial than ever. Though the official opposition does not have the constitutional power to propose anything that uses government funds, there is a very real opportunity to enact policies and even laws that don't rely on government money. In his first 100 days, Erin O'Toole and his Conservative Party have successfully passed 3 motions in the House of Commons. By gaining the support of opposition parties, the Conservatives have been able to greenlight a study that will take a deeper look at the Trudeau government's handling of the COVID pandemic. They forced the Trudeau minority government to end audits on small businesses during these extraordinary times, and, most notably, the House of Commons passed a motion that forces Trudeau to release his decision on whether he'll allow Huawei to build 5G towers in Canada within 30 days of the motion being passed. That decision will have to be released on Friday, only 2 days after this video was published. Their motion to continue the WE scandal investigation was voted against by the Liberals and NDP in the House of Commons when it was turned into a confidence vote by Trudeau. This was a serious setback for the party. The WE scandal looked as if it was damning enough to take down Trudeau. It had already forced the Liberal Minister of Finance to resign. Losing the momentum in this investigation dashed hopes of forcing an election and seeing a massive loss of confidence in the Liberal Party and Justin Trudeau. If you're interested in exactly how the WE investigation was blocked, our last video did a deep dive into the topic, which we'll include in the description. When O'Toole entered office over 100 days ago, the Conservative poll numbers were just beginning to recover. Liberal polling had skyrocketed after the election and amid the pandemic. On August 25th, the Liberals stood at 36.6% of Canadians to the Conservatives' 29.9%. Since then, the Conservatives under O'Toole have improved. They now stand at roughly 32%. But it's still not as high as election night in 2019, which still saw the CPC fail to gain enough seats to form a government. Despite what are seemingly disappointing poll numbers for a party with a brand new leader, the Conservative Party has seen a spike in donations. In the past quarter alone, the Conservative Party has raised over $5.6 million from just over 30,000 donors. That's one of the best the Conservative Party has had in its history outside of an election year, and a good sign for Erin O'Toole. In his first 100 days, O'Toole has reached some important milestones, notably a rise in the polls and a firm footing in terms of funding should an election take place. But he still has a great deal to do in terms of name recognition and boosting polls to a point that would make the Conservatives a serious contender to form government in an election, especially in provinces like Quebec. For an underdog candidate, O'Toole has done well, but this isn't a leadership election anymore. If the Conservatives want any real hope of forming government, O'Toole will have to do more than simply convince his members that he's fit to lead their party. He'll have to convince Canadians that he's fit to lead our country. As O'Toole acknowledged himself, it's been a busy 100 days, but I'm just getting started.